You are watching Property TV.
Hello and welcome to Property Question Time. My name is Stephen Galpin and this is the programme where you can have all of your property related questions answered by our team of experts. And joining me today is first of all Cam Dovedi. Cam, welcome.
Great to be here.
CEO, founder of Premier Property, investor, mentor and public speaker. Pretty good way of getting your knowledge, isn't it? There we go. Good to have you back, Cam.
Thank you.
And blast from the past, Tony Gimple, who is now CEO and founder of Brand Entrepreneur Limited.
Yep.
Tony, really good to have you back. You've had a bit of a sabbatical, but
Just a bit.
You're back in training now, so
Absolutely.
hope you got all the answers for us.
Well, I'll try. Whether they're the right ones or not, we'll soon find out.
Great stuff. Well, welcome back anyway. Okay. So, Cam, you're going to go first on the questioning. So, do the panel think that post-pandemic we will see an explosion of both residential and commercial rental debt, or with some of the government's assistance initiatives and a helpful attitude from landlords, the industry will pull through without too much lasting damage?
That's actually a really great question, because rental debt is a big problem. It's a massive problem for landlords, traditional landlords, people getting into property where the key is they haven't actually found the right area. So as entrepreneurs and momentum investors, what can be done, what we do, and anyone can do to be fair, is actually find the right specific areas where you've got right now high rental demand, where you've got rents actually increasing rather than reducing, and where you've got longevity of tenants. These places do exist. We have 3 of these in the UK, and it really is what we call it is the goldmine area, finding your specific goldmine area that really works as an entrepreneur, and also the rentals are there as well. So to identify these, there's a number of criteria that we have. Actually, there's 7 specific criteria. One of them is gross yield. So when you're looking for areas to be investing in where you're not going to have that problem of rental falling and so on, then gross yield really helps. Now, if you assess Knight Frank research, for example, they're looking at across the country anywhere between 2.8% to 4.8% as a gross yield. What we start with is a minimum of 7% gross yield. So that is one key indicator that you're in the right area. You're going to have all the things that we're discussing here working for you. And like I said, there's 7 different criteria. Once you've got those right, you're in the right area. You've basically got probability working for you, and you're going to make it a success. And the rentals aren't going to be a problem.
Mm. And I suppose in the more prosperous areas, you're going to have more reliability of rental income, aren't you?
Yes, that can be true. In my experience, the yields in those areas are lower. They don't necessarily tend to be the areas for investing. So I'm giving you the investor's perspective, because those are more homes. They are more people where they're actually not really renting too much, and the yields tend to be lower. Price points tend to be higher. Lovely property though. So we're looking at it as a business, and assessing it as a business where it works for the renter and the investor as well.
Do you think the government incentives, I suppose extending the period of Section 21 notices, I'm thinking of trying to bring in sort of standardised leases across the country, trying to make it a little more difficult to go to court to get possession. Now, do you think these things have helped with keeping the rental arrears down?
Well, there's a lot of changes. Has it helped keep the rental arrears down? So what we do is we will try to mediate the situation in the first place. So that really is a last resort anyway, if it goes to court and so on. My view on these changes is, well, first of all, yes, you can petition and we can sort of have words against that. However, the truth is, we've got to go with the flow. We're going to have to move along with the times. And as an investor, yes, Section 21, like I say, is a last resort, so that's not so great. However, things like longer tenancies, leases, if you're treating your business as an investment anyway, actually they can be benefits to you because you've got longevity of tenant, you've got longevity of rental, provided you learn to do it properly,
Yes.
you're going to get good results. So there's different there's different viewpoints on that. That's my viewpoint on it. So you you make it work. You learn what to do. You make it work. Otherwise, it can be a problem.
I think you raised an important point. I think good conversation and interaction with your tenant is a great substitute for court action. I think the moment you start court action, you might as well write your rent off, because you're not going to be getting any more, are you? Well, that's going on, I think. What do you think, Tony?
The minute it goes into the purview of lawyers, the relationship has broken down. So the key is, don't treat it as an investment, treat it as a business. Work with your tenants, look at good areas, sustainable areas. Yes, you want capital growth, but if you're in the rental game, and tenants and toilets are hard work regardless, you have to make sure you reference them properly. Start looking at social housing. There's a huge market coming up now in leasebacks to local authorities. Can be very profitable. And
reliable in terms of income.
Totally reliable, because in essence, the local authority becomes the agent, the tenant, they do all the liquidation.
Blue chip, aren't they?
Works. Yeah. They become your partner. Rents are good, yields are good, and you fulfil the balance between being red and tooth and claw capitalist and making sure that people who've got good quality homes over their head. And that's actually the real trick behind it. Make sure that you would want to live there yourself. If in those circumstances you had to live in rental accommodation or social housing, you want it comfortable for you, and that will, generally speaking, ensure you've got good finish, high standards, robust, good returns, and good tenants who will happily pay the rent because they know they've got a safe, secure roof over their head. Good place to raise the kids.
But I think there's one important point you raised there, Tony, and I'm sure you'll both agree that just owning property on its own doesn't necessarily make you rich or give you an income. It's a business, and unless you're prepared to run it as a business, at some point in time, I think you're going to get in trouble, because that's what it takes. All right, well, thank you both very much for that. Tony, your first question. Given that one is not allowed to invest directly into property as a pension fund, am I right to think if I formed a limited company to hold any buy-to-let properties, I could simply use that vehicle to create a de facto pension income stream for the future? If I am correct, are there any major pitfalls associated with taking this route? And I'm thinking perhaps he's thinking of taxation and finance here.
Where do you want to start?
I had a feeling you might say that.
Well, it's like that old Dave Allen joke where he goes on a road trip to the public, gets lost, asks somebody for directions, and the chap says, "Well, I want to start from here."
Yes, right.
Actually, is it a question about pensions, or really is it about what you're trying to achieve? I mean, all a pension is an income that will continue, at least for your lifetime, and preferably for spouses or children thereafter. So it's creating a business which will last in perpetuity. So you're perfectly correct. You cannot directly own residential rental properties via a pension. However, you can use REITs, residential investment trusts. You can contribute to that with a SIP and a SAS. The big danger, however, is that you go down a limited company route solely for pension purposes. If you're a relatively high earner, you can run into the pension cap quite quickly. There's a limit to how much you can put in. You've got to earn the money in the first place to put it in. You've then got the issues with limited companies are expensive to run. You've got increases in corporation tax. And from 2023, once you've got into that $250,000 area, you're going to be paying a hell of a lot in corporation tax.
What does the rate go up to in 23?
23, it goes up to 25%.
Right.
Which is a chunky amount, and that can be aggregated across all the companies you own.
Am I right to think that's about a 5%, a 5,000 increase, isn't it?
What's about 6%?
6%, yeah.
And it's a chunky amount, particularly when you look at it across all of the businesses that you're involved in. Limited companies have their advantages, but there are some major disadvantages. You know. But you shouldn't look at it from a tax perspective. The first place you have to start is, why are you in property in the first place? How much of what, by when, by whom? And the big question, why? And it's not just, I want to live on a big house, big house on top of the hill. Well, how many bedrooms? Which hill? What's it going to cost you? Yeah, you need to work back from there. And as you rightly said, it's not about get rich quick. It's a long-term, hard-working business where you need real experience, your own boots on the ground.
Mm. I was always educated to believe that property is not a 5-minute business. It's just not. Cam, do you want to come in on this?
No, I agree with what you guys are saying. It isn't a get-rich-quick scheme. However, you can fast-track it, and you can create a sustainable business. I suppose I'm living proof of this. And we're discussing pensions, so it is the unwritten pension, let's call it. It's your own personal way of creating a pension. Limited companies moving forward, obviously I can't give any tax advice, but what we're doing is limited companies moving forward are still very tax efficient. And I would say one of the pitfalls that people make is that they'll only invest in one property, for example, in a limited company. You've got to think about, as Tony says, you've got to think about the costs, because it can be costly. You need an accountant for that. You need to set up accounts and so on each year. So if you're only going to invest in, let's say, one buy-to-let in a limited company, then that's probably going to be quite costly. However, if you're thinking about building up a portfolio over a bit of time, you can choose a fast track. Fast track isn't 5 minutes. That could be a 12 to 24 month plan. Can be done. Then the limited company does become cost effective, in my experience, and you can create a nice amount of income. While let's be honest, whether you like helping people or whether you don't like helping people, you end up helping people because like Tony was mentioning earlier on, you're providing a good quality home for someone.
Sure.
And it is a business. So all of that, it really comes in together. And yes, you can create a pension where you've got income coming in from these properties. And I think it's a brilliant way of doing it, because we're in the UK. Assets. Let's be honest, right? Past performance, future performance, whichever way you want to look at it, they're only going to go one direction. That's up.
Well, I think that's right over a period of time. But I think the moral is there. I think again, you'd both agree that you do need professional advice, especially these days on this sort of thing. And really, you have to remember, as you said, Tony, it's a business. And business needs a certain amount of skill and professional help. All right, well, there we are. That's all we've got time for in this half of the show. So join Cam and Tony and myself after the break.
You are watching Property TV. You are watching Property TV.
Hello and welcome back to part 2 of Property Question Time. I'm Stephen Galpin, and with me are Cam Dovedi and Tony Gimple. Cam, your second question. I've recently received a substantial redundancy payment and I've decided to enter the property industry with a buy-to-let portfolio. I have arranged in principle funding, but I'm undecided about what sort of property to buy. I'm torn between buying new, which would require little or no expenditure to commence the letting, or an older property requiring refurbishment, which would require both additional investment and, of course, time. Have the panel any advice for me?
First of all, congratulations for making that move actually into property and getting that redundancy pay. So that's a big action done in the first place. That's brilliant. So my view is 2021 is really a year of adding value. That really is the key of 2021. Because let's keep it honest, we're in a heated market. Properties are selling, as we're aware. Interest rates are low. And anyone with any common sense is jumping into property because they understand it's a good asset class to be investing in. Probably the highest priced asset we buy in our lifetimes. So everybody gets it. It's property. So what I'm sharing here is the adding value element. So simple question to ask yourself is, in a new property, is there any added value potential? in a secondary style property, a Victorian or Georgian or whatever it is there adding value potential? And you probably find usually the answer where you get more yeses is in the traditional properties, the secondary market as it's called, isn't it? So there you have the opportunity to add rooms or to have a look at the ceilings where you can actually lower the ceilings and create extra space in the loft spaces and so on. You've got room to use PD rights to extend into the back or the side and so on. Or refurbish a property where it adds value and you're bringing it back into good condition. So we're always advocating, we're always looking at and buying these types of properties, secondary properties. Typically we find in new properties there isn't the adding value factor.
But you do get the saving on any maintenance or refurb cost, don't you, before you start?
You get a saving on the maintenance refurb cost, that is absolutely true. Typically, the ones that I've ever looked at, we always find that the price points are fairly much higher than the
They've been set
stock.
higher. Yeah.
So even when you factor in all the refurb, and you're quite right, you've got to think about these things. You factor in the refurb and the maintenance. After you've done that, you're still able to add value to that. And it's a key strategy to increase values in property.
So on balance, you come down on the resale of second-hand property, in other words.
Secondary. Think of it like a car, for example. As soon as a brand new car goes off the forecourt, it's now got a secondary value. The price will reduce. But it's much the same, isn't it? The quality that you're getting is really good, but you've got a better value.
Okay. You mentioned PDR, permitted development rights there. Now, reading in, I think it was the Evening Standard the other day, they're saying now that a lot of councils are saying, well, although we've been instructed to instigate PDR, which allows a certain amount of development without permission, as it were, they're going to ignore it. What do you think to that?
Yeah, well, it's welcome to the world of property. It's always adapting. As soon as you think you got it right, it changes again, and then you got to adapt again. So it's always a bit of Tom and Jerry. And yes, that is happening. It's really about a case of getting in, doing what you can now before the rules change. Permitted development rights, we're discussing that specifically. They right now are still available. And you're quite right, planners and councils and so on, they don't actually like them because it gives investors the opportunity to do more with stock, and the rules are changing. However, the rules are changing slower. So if you can be, cutting edge, if you can be there at the front, have that sort of first mover advantage, there is still opportunity right now to learn this stuff, jump in and do it properly, and create that added value while the rules change.
Are the councils right to ignore these government directives?
Are they right to ignore their government directives? Oh, well, I can't really answer that one for you. What's your view, Tony?
It's politics. It's not property. They're playing politics.
Is this why we've had about 12 housing ministers in about 10 years?
Oh, let's not go there, please. We'll be here all day.
So, there's always going to be adaptation in property, and you've just got to be, like I say, the first mover advantage. People have their reasons, but you can choose. You can have your reasons, or you can be rich. The people I care about, I say, why not be rich?
Absolutely, it's got to be miserable.
But it just occurs to me that permitted development rights will let you, perhaps, for instance, in certain areas, put another story on your property. Okay, well, fine. That does perhaps mean you might want to stay in that property longer. You're investing in what you've already got and all the rest of it. And from your own point of view, that can keep you out of the natural moving costs that you're going to incur with stamp duty, solicitors and all the rest of it if you can convert your property. However, on the other hand, it's a bit oppressive on the market itself, isn't it? It's cutting down movement. It's encouraging people to just stay where they are. If people do move, they tend to buy new white goods, which is good for the economy and so on and so forth. It's a hard balance, isn't it?
The PD development rights were designed to allow greater flexibility, hopefully less political interference, and more to the point, recondition property as opposed to build from scratch. And the pandemic, just look at Docklands. It's a shadow of its former self. And be able to convert without permission, or to do it very simply, So you've got mixed use, office, residential is a good thing, and planners can get in the way. You have to stimulate the economy, but there's also a green element to it now. Government is keen that we don't, build, because it's environmentally, very bad. But because all of the, if you like, carbon is sunk already, in the existing properties. So if you can, put an extra story on, you can extend more than 10% sideways. You can turn it into an HMO. Ultimately, it has to be a better thing, but there's still a great housing shortage in the private
The
and
bottom
public
line, I
sector.
would say, is you can stick 2 fingers up at the planners in the right direction, right? And you can do what you like within the permitted development rights. And whether you want to help people or you don't want to help people, you can't but help people, because all of these units, for example, in secondary retail units and so on, which are sitting there empty, doing nothing, looking pretty drastic, you can bring them back into the community. And you can make money from them. I mean, live a life of service is what I say.
I agree, but there's 2 points that Tony raised there, which I'm not going to go banging on about it because we'll be here all afternoon doing that. But take Docklands here, which you referred to. Now, 25 years ago, when I first moved down here, you could build what you like. There's no permissions necessary. As long as you hit building regs, you were fine. Okay, so that was good, and we saw some amazing developments, some amazing new architectural ideas, and it's all gone well. Now, what are the downsides there? We did a programme the other day and somebody mentioned, quite right, the government are hoping that people will build themselves 300,000 homes in this coming year or two. Well, we had that down here 25 years ago. They end up being unmortgageable, unsafe in some respects, poorly designed. It's a catastrophe waiting for somewhere to happen, that is. Okay. And secondly, we only have to look across the road here at the Reuters building, which was built 22 years ago. It's now being pulled down because it's not tall enough. So the lifespan of some of these commercial properties is 20 to 25 years now. Now, that can't be good for the environment, can it really?
Terribly bad.
So there we are. Anyway, I better, Tony, come to your question now and at least give you 2 minutes left in the show.
So kind.
I keep reading in the property press how the government effectively is trying to discourage the smaller property investor in favour of the larger institutions. However, when I look at some of the government initiatives, it seems that a lot of the new tax impositions can be avoided by carrying out rental investment activities in a limited company rather than as a private individual. Is this correct? And what are the implications of transferring my properties into a company? There you are, I can answer that in a minute and a half.
In a minute?
No, that's fine.
So kind. Right. Strangely, bigger institutions pay less tax than individuals. They find more ways to mitigate their tax position.
Sure.
Than in small businesses can. But it's back to the argument: should I be limited? Should I hold it in my own name? Should I use mixed partnerships, and so on? All right. So let's start where you've got an existing portfolio. You want to transfer it into limited company structure. It starts to get quite expensive. You've got to be able to claim what's called Section 162 incorporation relief. So you don't have to pay CGT entry. It effectively gets held over. But you've probably got a remortgage. You've potentially got higher interest rates. You've got potentially less loan to value. And you're locked in. It is a one-way street. Yes, you've got other tax breaks, but you're going to run out of your director's loan account in short order. And then what are you going to do? Yeah, so you've got to pay corporation tax, income tax, dividend tax, auto enrolment, employers' national insurance, employees' national insurance. And the minute you start taking your money out, whichever way, you've got, well, I think it worked out something in the region of over 60% you end up paying, which is a hell of a lot of money. But it's horses for courses. Limited companies aren't the panacea for Section 24. Neither is keeping it in your own name. You have to look at it in the round and work out why you're doing it, Is it just you, or is it for a family business, for pension and so on later on?
Do you think there's anything in the argument that people say that it's the government wanting an easier way of collecting taxes, and a limited company is a transparent vehicle, isn't
Totally.
it? Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, and with making tax digital, limited companies, they see everything. Whereas as an individual, in a limited liability partnership, in particular mixed partnerships, and if they're done for the right reasons, they are perfectly legal and totally valid. You can now pay the correct amount of tax.
Okay. All right, gentlemen, that's all we've got time for today. So to Cam Dovedi, thank you very much for coming in, Cam. Tony Gimple, great to have you back.
Pleasure.
Great advice as ever, so thank you very much for that. I'm Stephen Galvin. Join me again next time on Property Question Time.